Okay, I have 9 o'clock. I'll call the February 12th Board of Commissioners meeting to order. Please join me in the pledge to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, start with agenda review.
Mr. Chair, there are no changes to the agenda today.
Move to approve. There's a
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is approved. Okay, we'll start with drainage. Craig Austinson, please.
Hey, good morning, Craig.
Morning, Craig.
Morning, Craig. Get through the snow okay?
What's that?
Get through the snow okay?
I'm making it to work.
There you go. It's better than some.
Start out with, I guess, the first thing. We got to set some hearings. I set them up so we're combining everything for certain times in one order here. So the first one is set a hearing date for County Ditch 5 and County Ditch 92 for redetermination of benefits. I am asking that it be set for 9 o'clock on March 12th here in the Commissioner's room.
Okay,
I would move approval.
Second.
all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Next one is for set hearing date for County Ditch 26, JD 22, County Ditch 76, and before the redetermination of benefits hearings. And since this will be in conjunction with 83, as we're looking at this is in the afternoon, this is going to be at 1:30, again here in the county boardroom, and that again also is at March 12th.
Okay, 1:30 on March 12th.
Move to approve.
Okay. Your second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
And my third item here is, this is just something we do annually. We move to advance from the regional funds the negative balances in the ditch accounts. This is just something is a formality we do every once a year.
Okay.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's carried.
Okay.
Thank you, Craig.
Thank you, Craig.
Thanks, Craig.
Okay, move right along with Public Works. Ryan?
Good morning.
Morning, Ryan.
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 Morning, Ryan.
I know it. Jeez.
Yeah, every time we get together.
There's it snows.
All right. Well, we've got our 4 action items and then some informational items, and then please, as always, feel free to interject with any questions that you might have along the way. The first order of business is a resolution for agency agreement. This was considered last month and approved. The resolution and agreement for the engineering work on the Kern Bridge salvaging. Unfortunately, the resolution that was provided by the state, and in my condition, I didn't look it over very closely because of being in and out of the hospital. There was a discrepancy between it stating county auditor and county administrator, so the agreement said county administrator and the resolution said auditor. It was kicked back from MnDOT's legal folks, and I kicked and screamed and protested. I didn't want to have to bring it forward again, but so I do apologize for that, but they were sticklers on it, so we just asked for reapproval of the same resolution if you'd.
Put the right words in the right place.
Yeah.
I'll move it.
Title.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you. Second order of business is consideration of final payment for state aid project 007652003, which was replacement of Old Bridge 0701 on County State Highway 52. Contractors with an Icon Constructors. It was constructed in 2018. The final contract payment amount is $8,478.98, and total amount that would be paid to date $847,897.50.
Okay,
Move to approve.
second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried.
Action item number 3 is consideration of final payment for State Aid Project 007-614-011. This was County State Aid Highway 14 from 10 to 4. This was our construction project from 2017. It was inundated with water, very wet. They had to complete the remaining work in 2018. So the final payment amount, $29,944.13, with total final contract amount, $2,782,800.83.
Okay. A motion to approve?
I'll move approval. Second.
Okay, any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's carried.
All right, thank you. Action item number 4, consideration of a detour agreement. This was a detour agreement for costs that were incurred on miscellaneous county roads this was for damages that were incurred or additional maintenance costs. During the Minnesota Highway 22 reconstruction official detour, this was on roads that were parallel or adjacent to the detour route that received an excessive amount of traffic. The agreement amount is for what we had documented for excessive maintenance costs, $1,281.25. There is an agreement and I believe a supporting resolution for MnDOT standard operating procedure.
Okay,
Move to approve.
is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
Fantastic. Informational item number 5 is just discussion on the County State Highway 2 and Hoffman Road intersection control evaluation. And I'll try to keep it fairly brief. I provided the board in the packet with the majority of the document. I didn't include all the appendices because it was
It was long enough.
fairly hefty document. There was a lot there already, so I didn't want to inundate you with all the calculations, kind of all the behind the scenes, how the sausage is made, maybe you would say. The purpose of the evaluation was to analyze the intersection control alternative for the intersection and to identify a long-term alternative that ranks best on the criteria that are outlined within the report. And so I'll kind of step through some of the discussions. One of the key things that drove this is we've received some complaints about the configuration of the intersection. Why don't you have turn lanes here and there? So it really did warrant a good look. We also knew that the existing signals that are there are very old and are not ideal by today's current standards. And we do have reconstruction of that road planned in our 5-year capital improvement program currently. I think it's sitting in 2022, I believe, 21 or 22. So knowing that that was coming, we wanted to take a look at the intersection ahead of time and make sure that we were going to have a good planning document available to us. As you page through the document, figure 2 denotes the existing conditions. That would be on page 7 of the actual ICE report. Not sure what it is.
Page 23 of our packet.
Yeah.
Okay. The existing Victory Drive is a 5-lane roadway with 2 lanes in each direction and then a left turn lane as you approach Hoffman Road. The approaches are 40 miles an hour in both directions. However, about 500 feet south of the intersection, the speed limit does transition to 45 miles an hour. Hoffman Road is a 4-lane on the east side of Victory Drive, County State Highway 82, with a 30 mile an hour speed limit, and on the west side is a 3-lane roadway, again 30 miles an hour speed limit. The next page, page 8 of the ICE report, details crash history. There's a daily entering volume of 27,200 vehicles per day.
Wow.
Results in a crash rate of 1.41 crashes per million entering vehicles, which is above the statewide average for that type of intersection. That statewide average is 0.7, and the critical crash rate is 1.01, which does tell us that there is an existing crash problem. I did want the consultant that prepared this report, SRF, to include the actual data in the table, because what I find very interesting is while there is a crash problem, there are no serious injury or fatal crashes reported in that 5-year period. So I think that's an important thing to keep in mind as we look at the crash data, that while there are a fair amount of crashes, they're primarily property damage or non-capacitating injury, which is not good to have that level of crashes, but it is important to know that they're, so far have been less egregious.
I drive this all the time.
And you haven't had a crash.
Not,
Thank
knock on
So
wood.
what's, you know, how do they plan to change it?
But that's where I'm,
You're going to?
that's where I'm going, yep. So we'll go on to, figure 3, which is page 10 of the document. That we evaluated 2 separate, well, actually 3 alternatives. We evaluated just putting in new signals with the existing lane configuration, which isn't shown here because it was already detailed earlier. Figure 3 details traffic signal control with geometric improvements alternative, which is addition of turn lanes in the southbound, northbound, and eastbound approach legs, as you can see on that figure number 3. So that was one of the alternatives that was considered, along with new signalization with some of the optimization features that are available. And the next page, figure 4, is a conceptual roundabout control. So we evaluated all the different features, and it just gives you an idea of what it could hypothetically look like. One of the concerns we had with the roundabout control is the proximity to the intersection with the strip mall and gas station, and the perceived loss of hypothetical access. So that has to be taken into consideration as well, that it's awfully close to the roundabout to allow full access at all of the existing access points. So we'd have to do some access control, which would be challenging with established businesses. We flipped to figure number 5, which would be page 13 of the document. Approach traffic volumes.
Okay, which page for us?
29 in the packet.
29? Okay.
As you see, the 2018 traffic counts, 20,300 on Victory Drive north of the intersection, 19,300, 6,000 on Hoffman on the west, and 8,800 on the east. And then in that bubble, you can also see the turning movements. So a lot of traffic.
This was really interesting, though.
Did they take into consideration that now that we have, Hoffman Road, extending, and there's going to be much more traffic going down through this?
Yes, so that was taken into account in the 2038 forecasted, which is the next page that I also have tabbed. And you can see there is still planned growth. We're looking at approximately 3,000 vehicles per day on each of the Kasai to Victory Drive approaches.
Yep.
And, 2 to about 2,000 on the Hoffman Road approaches. So that's the 20-year estimated traffic projections. It gets into relatively detailed warrants analysis, alternative analysis detail. I'm not going to go too deeply into that. Page 18 of the report does provide the level of service evaluations. If you want to look at that in further detail, I won't walk through all of those. It's just a lot of information. Page 20 of the report details the project cost, the estimated cost. Cost to construct a roundabout at this location is estimated at $1.36 million, whereas signalization is, with the traffic signal control with geometric improvements, about $620,000. And then I'm going to actually jump to the conclusion of the document, just to hit on a couple of points. Page 23 of the document. The operational analysis indicates that the alternatives would operate with acceptable level. All of the alternatives considered operate at acceptable levels of service under the 2038 traffic conditions. The AM peak during the forecasted conditions with the existing conditions would have high delay, much higher than the alternative with the geometric improvements. And the roundabout may also have significant delay during the peak 15-minute period, so that 8 a.m. time frame.
8 and 3.
Exactly.
Or 2:30, whatever time school gets out,
Yes.
yeah.
So that's important to note. Safety analysis, based on the results of the crash analysis, the roundabout alternative is anticipated to have fewer crashes than its traffic control alternatives. But the traffic signal control alternative with geometric improvements would anticipate to have reduced crashes from the existing configuration and existing signal system that is in place. Obviously, the roundabout, the entry speeds are lower. You have the advantageous geometry so that the crashes are non-right angle crashes, which would improve, obviously, safety. We already discussed the cost analysis. Right-of-way considerations. Traffic signal control with geometric improvements alternative would require approximately 1,800 square feet of new right-of-way. The roundabout would require approximately 5,300 square feet of new right-of-way. Because it is in a fully built-out area, getting the roundabout to fit is a little bit of a challenge. Transportation system considerations, given the fact that this is really a signalized corridor, and it has been tied in with fiber optics so that all of the signals are talking to each other, that's one consideration that was taken in. Roundabout would provide benefit as far as traffic calming for some of the residences adjacent, so there are benefits to both that were taken into consideration. Pedestrian and bicycle considerations. The signalization would provide a phase for pedestrians to have a signalized crossing. Roundabout, the pedestrians would have to cross 2 lanes of traffic, obviously, and then they'd have a refuge island. So there's benefit and drawback to that, as we've heard recently from the public. So we do want to be cognizant of how many pedestrians are crossing at the roundabouts, and is it the best tool in our toolbox at the time. And then local acceptance. I think really we kind of thought this was a coin toss, because the public is certainly accustomed to driving roundabouts at this point in time. The majority of the feedback we receive is positive. We do still receive some feedback of people that don't care for them. And then signals have already been in place if people are familiar with that concept. So the subsequent page, there is a decision matrix, but I'm going to just get to the last paragraph of the page. A traffic control signal with geometric upgrades alternative is recommended because it would provide acceptable operations. It's expected to improve safety compared to existing conditions and would have significantly lower costs than a roundabout, and it is the best fit in the surrounding transportation system. So,
I was pleased with the recommendation.
yeah, you know, and we looked at the roundabout, and I had some nervousness, and the one thing I didn't touch on in here, it also talks about the amount of teenage drivers going through the intersection to the high school. And that was a point that I had raised, that I do have some concern with that, because we all know maybe not the best decisions are made, and that more going on, thinking perhaps the signal was a better fit in this circumstance as well.
You know, I've always understood that, you know, roundabouts don't reduce the amount of accidents, they reduce the amount of serious accidents.
And I agree with that.
And we're looking at our past of not having any serious accidents here already.
Right.
I just can't see putting in an extra, you know, $500,000 or whatever, $1 million extra to put in a roundabout. That would be one of my huge ones. And I guess my biggest issue would be Happy Dance.
Right.
Because you got people coming in and out of Happy Dance, they're going to want to take a left-hand turn, and that's going to be, I mean, taking a right-hand turn out of there is not going to be a problem. And we just can't have a right in and right out coming from that, you know, that place. That just isn't, that would kill that property on the corner, that, you know.
And
so, yeah, I can't see having a roundabout there.
Exactly, and that's we looked at it, and that given the conditions that you stated and that were detailed, it certainly, the solution was clear to the city and the county, as we were both project partners on this through the MAPO for this development of this report. So, but it is good. We've gone through the exercise. We've proven, and they've also helped us with the geometric recommendations. As we move into design, we can carry that forward. Certainly pursue that. I think it's warranted to definitely include that in our project.
I spoke at the senior class for Miss Robinson's class, and so this very intersection came up.
Oh, okay.
And they were actually kind of back and forth whether, you know, several of the students thought it'd be great. These are senior kids.
Okay.
Thought it'd be great to have a roundabout there, just so they don't have to deal with the signal lights.
Sure.
But it was surprising how many of the students were interested in that intersection. There's just something getting done with it. So
Yeah, it's
they're
good.
paying
It's always
attention.
been problematic.
And we had a great discussion. Mike Lavens was there with me as we spoke to 3 or 4 classes, so we've got, 100 kids.
That's
And a
really
lot of discussion
positive.
about that intersection came up,
Yeah.
so.
It sounds like we might have a lot of future engineers on our hands.
There you go.
Roundabouts and signals.
There you go.
We always ask the question, what do you think of the roundabouts in the Mankato, Blue Earth County
Okay.
area? And you usually get about half that like them, and you always get the comment that we get from that we get from the elder people too, is that people need to learn how to drive in them.
Yeah.
They like them, but they don't like the way some people drive in them, so.
Very true.
I had one comment from another rural commissioner who I will not name, who mentioned that Mankato drivers are so mean because every time he goes through the roundabouts, he's getting the horn honked at him. I just didn't say maybe it's not them that are having the problem, because I've been driving those roundabouts since they opened up, and I haven't had the horn honked at me yet. So.
I've honked my horn at some other people.
Come on, folks, let's go. No, good report. Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
It
But I hope
definitely-
you find interest in it. I know
Good
it gets vetted
report.
through the MAPO, but just make sure you're informed on them and try to keep it relatively brief. It is a lot of information. so.
Surprising, it's interesting how interesting transportation is. I mean,
Absolutely.
it's-
Interesting read. One other question, when you talk about reconstruction of the road, are you gonna look at the Balserzak corner?
Yes, yep. It would be from where we left off with the northern limits of the roundabout at 60 and 82
Okay,
up to where the Victor Drive Stage 3 project left off, which would
Okay.
lead as Fair Street.
okay,
So
okay.
we'd be looking at that
That whole
corridor as a
corridor,
whole,
yeah.
And ideally urbanizing it so we could fit a trail on pieces that haven't been urbanized yet, so we have a continuous trail corridor through there.
Right, and that trail's always the headache going through that wetland area and stuff, because
Right.
we're consistently getting, or I am consistently getting talked to by certain city council members about the trail going towards Stadium Road and where
Yep.
it cuts off, and
And that's been, I know, a concern
it's,
for the
but,
last decade
you know,
or so.
like,
since
can you find property, I mean, it's squeezed in there.
Absolutely.
And that's a problem. Problems finding room for a trail,
Yep,
Eventually you had to connect with,
Well,
Madison would be cool if it could connect somehow.
Reconstruction, and then you're adding additional impervious area, and how do you treat that runoff? And I was just reviewing Minnesota Pollution Control Agency requirements for the proposed permit rules for MS4 areas, which this would be. And now, not only are they requiring you treat your new impervious areas, but now they want anytime you reconstruct an area, which this would be a reconstruction because the underlying concrete pavement, now you have to provide a volume treatment for the reconstructed areas as well, which is going to be very, very challenging without acquiring additional rights.
so there's no grandfathering in.
It's just all of the environmental regulations. I know that's one of our talking points when we go up and to the Capitol or to Washington. It's made it really hard to have any progress. I'll just buzz through some additional information items. Planning projects updates. County Stated Highway 1 from 9 to 90. In the surcharge areas, as you're aware, we had the archaeological artifact discovery, the animal bones and broken arrowhead fragments. The Army Corps of Engineers has a liaison position that's funded through Minnesota Department of Transportation State Aid, and they're on the third person in the last 8 months in that position, so that has not benefited us, as you can probably imagine. Their tribal review letters are in the queue for their commander to sign, and then they will be sent to the tribes for their requisite review periods. But unfortunately, it's hit the wall. They are aware of the urgency of our project. I've been calling, pestering them. The project manager from SRF has been pestering them, and Gary Ryle with the MnDOT State Aid Office, who's kind of helps and works with that liaison position, has also been pressuring them for that. So they're aware of it, and they're moving it as fast as the Army Corps of Engineers can move it, which is not still terribly quick, but they're aware, which I guess is good. Obviously, we need that permit to place the surcharge in the new alignment segment. They are looking at breaking out the permitting for the rest of the job, so perhaps we could at least get the surcharge done down the chute. and as well as any of the other construction areas. However, the surcharge is critical path for that segment on the new alignment because of the soft underlying soils. So very unfortunate. We're still gonna ride it out and see how, if we get the permit in time, we'd still like to get that surcharge in place this summer, which would put us in position to reconstruct the road in 2020. County State Highway 14 from Minnesota 30 to 4 was initially scheduled for construction last year and fell behind due to permits and design and right-of-way acquisition. We're going to be opening bids March 6th for a March 12th board consideration. And then our rural reconstruction project, CASA 10 from the Blue Earth River to County State Highway 1, that's scheduled for this year, is just with the length and size of these rural projects and the delays we're seeing in permitting. Our plans are at 90% completion. We're beginning right-of-way acquisition meetings next week, and we'll be submitting the Army Corps of Engineers permits soon. The right-of-way and core permit are critical path at this point, so we're still hopeful to get the project out for construction this year and get a portion of it completed. However, I'm not terribly confident that we'll get it all constructed this year. It is a 5-mile rural reconstruction, but we're going to try to get it out and at least get it under contract so that some of the drainage crossings and things like that may be completed this year. 17, Hafner Drive Roundabout. The plans are at 90%. We've been coordinating utility relocations because that's really critical path for the project. One of the 3 main feeder lines that feed the city of Mankato from Xcel Energy, that are kind of the arteries of Mankato's electricity, runs smack dab through the middle of our road.
Oh my.
So, we're coordinating that, where there's also, you know, 4 or 5 different telecommunications lines out there for fiber optic. So it's really a major artery, not only for traffic, but for communications, power, gas. We're still trying to build in approximately a month for the utilities where we'll have the road closed and the contractor can take off the pavement, the utilities will get in there and get the relocations done, and then the contractor would start. So we had a recent meeting with the utilities to try to figure out how best to structure that. And we're working with the city of Mankato under their franchise agreement with the utilities that they'll be issuing the relocation notice to the utilities. The one critical item we do need is right-of-way for them to move into. So we have to provide them with a notification, but also have somewhere for them to go.
Did they have that same issue with Madison in 22?
I would certainly believe so, yeah.
It was a bigger project, but, you know.
Correct. Yeah, the
And
utility
the
relocations.
state was involved with that, but.
You know, and the state is always obviously a little bit farther out lead time with their size of agency and having people specifically dedicated to that, so I'm sure they were out ahead of it earlier, but it's same boat. It's a mess. It's a hornet's nest of utilities that are in
Hey, you don't want to slip.
Exactly. So we're working through that process. It looks like a lot of them, the telecommunications folks, are going to all work together to try to do a joint conduit system so that they are all in one trench.
That'd be great.
Or at least get one contractor to do it all together, which would help us out. So it's still on track, but it's going to be touch and go, and that will add to the closure period for the intersection, unfortunately. But we want to get in there. We want to get it done right, get it done safely.
How's our right-of-way acquisition going?
Jack has met. He's getting the appraisals finalized, and he's going to be meeting with those folks. I would anticipate probably next week or so to be able to start making offers. And meetings have been good. Obviously, we haven't put pen to paper as far as financial amounts yet, but I would anticipate, knowing that the support of the businesses for the project, I hope it'll go well.
Yeah. Just that we want control of all that before we move forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep, good idea.
It's a great opportunity for the utilities to upgrade.
Yep,
Exactly.
perfect time for that.
It is. It's
I believe that's where the county's fiber line also goes, so all of our internet access to our state systems travels that route, so. Sort of. Just 450 employees depending on it, right? That's all.
In fact, I think Jaguar Communications contracts to kind of manage it, and they had brought that up and we discussed it. That, yes, we certainly are aware that that's a vital piece out there. So.
Jeez.
Yeah, we'll watch for that line.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Luray Township Bridge box culvert replacement, we're opening bids on February 20th for March 12th, board consideration. The Rapidan Dam left abutment repairs. The plans were reviewed by Ontario Power Generation, which is formerly Eagle Creek Renewable Energy, the new holding subsidiary. Plans have been submitted to the Federal Energy Regulatory Committee for review and their approval. So we're hopeful that we'll get their approval soon and put that out to bid to get that left wall resurfaced this year as well. Again, capitalizing on that remaining $250,000 that we had from the state grant in 2016 of the extension that we authorized a while back. And I'll have to couple some local dollars to go with it to complete that work. But Kern Bridge removal and salvage, we did receive a proposal from LHB Consultant Engineering Company. They previously did the field assessments, a historic management plan, and then later a detailed load capacity analysis of this bridge structure. So they're very, very familiar with the bridge. They have it all modeled in their software. They know the nuts and bolts of it, to say the least. So we deemed it most efficient to hire them to move forward with the salvage and restoration plan, or salvage and I don't want to say demolition, just salvage plan, salvage and storage, yes. I haven't approved it yet.
I hope that can be used somewhere.
I do too. I'd really like to see it locally used, so we're still pursuing those avenues.
Be great.
And then just a couple of miscellaneous item updates. Eagle Lake Forest Main, we recently met again with the city to discuss the abandoning of the pipe that's under our road. The city's looking at getting a contractor to televise pieces of the pipe where they can, so they can have additional information on the condition of it, so our confidence of whether or not it completely needs to be sand filled, or if we can just abandon portions with them acknowledging the liability. So it was a good meeting. And then our ADA transition plan, you may have recently seen the notice for the revised time. The transition plan open house is going to be held on February 20th, but the time was revised to 3 to 6 p.m. So I know your board agenda, I think, says 5:30 to 7:30. That's been changed from 3 to 6.
3 to 6.
And that's obviously being administered through the MAPO. And then we hired the consultant Bolton and Mink to do a county-wide plan and pull it all together for us, because it is a required planning document for future federal funds. So with that, I would answer any questions or...
Okay,
Excellent, excellent report. Thank you very much.
Lots going on.
There is.
Yeah, still a lot going on.
More to come, I think, so.
Yeah,
Thanks
more
for
snow, you mean,
your,
or?
Probably that too.
Oh,
and thanks for your work this last week.
Thank you, I
Yeah.
enjoyed it. It was,
nice job.
I had a good
Capital.
visit with Representative Monson too after we parted ways, and they got quite a bit of time and went very well, so.
That's great.
That's good.
Yeah, it's worth the investment of our time and resources.
It's nice that there were enough of us to split up, because Vance and I met with Senator Rosen, and it was a good conversation too.
Yeah, great conversations.
Yeah. Good.
All right.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan.
Okay, move on to some administrative services.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, the first item is the county board minutes for January 22nd.
I would move the minutes.
Second?
Okay, any discussion? None, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
Next are the bills for the 3 weeks that are indicated there.
I'll move the bills.
is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
All right.
Nope.
No discussion?
Didn't see anything that stood out and slapped me in the face.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, next is the Human Resources Department agenda, just informational items for the board today. We are filling a number of positions, as you'll see as we work through here. Starting though with recruitment that's been initiated for an assistant county attorney to refill a position that was vacated. But then we did have a promotion in our Human Services Department that was part of the budget process to upgrade a position, so it's listed as a newly budgeted position, but it's really just that promotional piece. Then we had a promotion in our property tax area. Our taxation and record supervisor left under the early retirement, so we've filled that position now. We filled a custody officer position. We've also filled an assistant county attorney, another custody officer. There's a couple of financial assistance specialist positions that were filled. Filled a medium equipment operator, a social worker, and then a lateral transfer of a care coordinator. And so that lateral transfer has resulted in the need to initiate recruitment to refill that position. On the second page, you'll see we did have a resignation of an assistant county attorney, so we've begun recruitment efforts to fill that position, and also a resignation from an appraiser, and so we've initiated efforts to fill that position. Be happy to answer any questions that the board
Where
might
did Nick
have.
move on to?
Hennepin County.
He's gonna be in the adult, not gangs, but something.
Good for him.
Yeah.
I really like Nick. Sorry to see him go, but I'm always, it's always a plus when you see somebody advance himself, and
Exactly.
you know, you get out into Hennepin County, Lord, the largest county in the state, and
Yeah, and he wasn't, I don't believe, he wasn't, applying, he was asked to apply.
I believe it.
Oh, wow.
So,
Smart
Sought him
guy.
out.
yeah,
He is
so
good.
we'll miss him, and he gave us,
We-
a really nice long notice, and,
It's nice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so
We're,
we'll
he's
miss him, but-
a great guy. I really
Yeah.
like Nick, so.
Great. Any other questions?
Nope.
Okay, we'll move on.
All right, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, item number 8 in your packet is a committee appointment. We discussed this at the work session a week or so ago. This is for the Minnesota Valley Council of Governments. Since the county is now a member of that Council of Governments, they have 2 committees that they request appointments to, and one is the General Assembly, and so Commissioner People, we talked about appointing him to the General Assembly. Then there is an Operations Committee that I would participate in, and so recommending the appointment of Commissioner People to the General Assembly and myself to the Operations Committee.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
I know Mark is gonna do just an amazing job and
You use your,
make Blue Earth County.
gotta come up with
look good.
another, adjective, whatever. It's amazing.
Well, you know,
It's actually it's starting to meet, or it's gonna meet pretty quick now.
You
General
know,
Assembly.
you've already been somebody, now you really are somebody.
Okay.
What can
With
you add
that,
to
all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Good job, Mark.
Carried. Thank you, Mark.
Item number 9 in your packet is a letter from the state auditor, kind of outlining the role of the work that they will do as a part of our 2018 audit. And so it just describes their responsibilities, management's responsibilities, the nature of the audit, both in terms of the objectives as well as the compliance requirements. And so this is a letter we approve annually.
Okay. Do you have a motion to approve this?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's carried.
Item number 10 in your packet then is the financial status report for January 31st. It's the first month of our fiscal year, so it's really a little challenging to kind of make any conclusions out of that just because of the timing of things. But you'll see that we did take in just under $2.7 million of revenue against a $7.3 million expenditure level. Not uncommon this time of year. So really not a lot to report at this point, just again, getting started. The enterprise fund is Ponderosa, again, very similar sorts of messaging there. Total revenue for January was $246,000 against $261,000 worth of expense. The second page has our cash and investment balances. Again, not a lot of change from the December report, so not a lot to report. I might just highlight, though, for Commissioner Purvis, the law library still does have a small negative balance, and I know they're working to turn that around, but it does still show up that way, so just so you're aware. be happy to answer any questions the board might have.
I don't have any questions.
I don't either.
It's good.
Okay. I think that brings us to commissioners' reports. Have any volunteers to start?
I can start as soon as
Okay.
let me see here. Okay, the last meeting we had was January 22nd. That's 3 weeks, just really stretches it out.
That's because we spent most of the time digging out.
Yeah. Anyway, that afternoon I testified at the Minnesota House Transportation Committee for the hands-free bill. The next day, on the 23rd, I testified at the Minnesota Senate Transportation Committee for the hands-free bill. I know it's gone through finance in the Senate. I'm not sure about the House, what it's gone through, but it's still in the works and sounding pretty positive. You know, I haven't heard any electeds that are against it. I take that back. I have heard a couple representatives, but they are really in the minority. And it's just one of those common sense bills that will keep all of us safe across the state of Minnesota. On January 25th, I had a Magic Board meeting up in Wade Park by St. Cloud. On January 26th, myself, along with Kip and Mark, and I don't know if anybody else was at the Loose Moose for the Soup for the Troops. We were there, and I left there, and then I went to a hot dish feed over at the Dave's Harley Davidson for the Echo Food Shell. So I was fed very well that day. And then on the 29th, we had a work session. On February 2nd, I went to the Coffee with a Free Press at the Historical Society. That was pretty interesting. It really had some good conversations there.
It was on education, wasn't it?
Yeah.
February 4th, I did a tour. To start the day, I was going into TDS to sign some checks, and I saw a guy slip and fall on the ice. Yeah, Lord knows it was going to happen to me the same day, but I helped this guy up. He worked at a place called HerdStar at Madison East Center. And HerdStar builds bin monitors and heat controls for animals and software. And they're located right there in the Madison East Center. And it's one of those places you walk by every day, you know, if you're in the building, and you have no idea what they do. Well, they started like 15 years ago with 3 people, and they're up to 15. They're one of the most widely recognized businesses for building bin monitors. You know, those are like the feed for pigs and chickens and stuff, you know, what they can put scales on those things so the farmers know without looking how full that bin is. Because, you know, when you fill it up, it's heavier, and it's interesting. But it was just really interesting for an old farmer like myself that to go through something like that. And then it's so positive for it being in Blue Earth County.
Did it have its origins? Did it come from? I thought it was in Lake Christopher.
It could have been.
Yeah.
Could have been. But they didn't tell me where they started. But it was. They gave me a walk around their offices, and I see these people working on little computer things, which is far beyond my skill level. So, and then we had I did a call in for the Blue Earth Nicollet County Safe Roads that afternoon, so that went well. February 6th, I met with Colleen and Josh on the legislative issues that we're going to talk for the NACO Ledge Conference. And then we had our department head meeting on February 7th. We had Transportation Day at the Capitol. Myself and Ryan, Colleen and Ryan went and talked with different representatives. Representative Considine and Brand, Senator Rosen. Ryan said he talked with Munson. And then I met with later on in the afternoon, I met with Senator Newman, who is the chair of the Transportation Committee for the Senate, and with AMC staff Emily Murray, and talked to him on transportation funding. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Vance? Mark, do you want to go next?
Sure. Let's see. Yep, board meeting on the 22nd. And then, I think that's, Vance and Kip, we were at the Soup for Troops that Saturday. And then they did have a PAW meeting, and it was more with our finance and fundraising on the 24th of January. And the reminder that we had the Pedal Pass Priority for Partners for Affordable Housing, our signature largest event for fundraising, and that is the Saturday the 23rd.
And donations are greatly appreciated.
And yes, thank you. And I have my friend here helping with getting donations by announcing that. So yes, if you haven't given yet, we'll certainly receive it. It's hopefully the weather will cooperate the way it's been going. I don't know how that'll work, but then on the 30th we had our community, the All Seasons Arena, just an orientation for the members of that. And Monday the 4th February we had our community outreach with Audrey, and that went community ed, and that was really interesting. It's broadened a little bit more since I remember a few years ago. That's good. And then actually February 6th had our department heads, and our Maple was the following Thursday after, was canceled because of the fine weather we're having.
Mm-hmm. But we have been getting hit lately.
Yeah, there's a bunch of things that concludes my report, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Yes, start off with cancellations, several.
Yeah.
Monday,
Yeah.
Tuesday, Thursday
Yeah.
was busy. I had several meetings that just got canceled, so weather is what it is. We've been lucky and very fortunate the last several years, but already mentioned a couple times the Soups for Troops. I thought it was a great turnout.
Yeah.
Good amount of
good.
people there. Mark, most of us were there again last year too, but I think there was twice as many people there this year. I was huge.
Pretty much packed.
Didn't hear how much money they made, but it was a good program, and it was a lot of fun. Got to see Commissioner McLaughlin there. He was walking around, visiting with people. Michael was there, so we had good representation from the county. After that, I had a statewide communication board conference call. I am on that board because I'm the regional radio board, emergency communication board now, chair. And then through that, I got elected to be the chair of the executive committee for the legislative committee. So I was the vice chair, and they appointed me to be the chair of that committee. So I report.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
It's usually always a conference call, but as the ledge chair, I make a report at the statewide communication board. Then we had our work session, which was already mentioned. A lot of good things going on there. We had an MRCI meeting, but I didn't get the email fast enough to tell us it was canceled, so I showed up. And the commissioner from LeSueur County was there, so actually we had a nice visit with Brian, and we looked at the facilities. We got a lot of things going on at MRCI with downsizing of in-house work, so we took a tour of the facility and actually had about an hour meeting and just had a nice little one-on-one with Brian and talked about a lot of different options with what we're going to do with that space, and we put in a group together. But Brian said that we did have a pretty good month last month, so we'll be meeting again next month. Will and I and Bob were over in Brown County for a couple ditch meetings and ditch hearings that we approved last Tuesday, and then I was at the department head, got a report, and got to meet our new department head for the library, Kelly, so that was nice to see her get on board. Had planning and zoning that evening. We had several items on the agenda. We're going to have a busy next few months. They were all non-controversial. We didn't even have anybody testify for any one of the items, so we'll see them at the end of the month. I don't think we'll have any issues with them, but as I said before, we will be having, they have a full agenda of items for the next 2 or 3 weeks. So a lot of stuff going on in planning and zoning. And then last week I had a statewide emergency communication conference call for our ledge conference, and got a report from Dana on the 911 money and just how we're going to proceed with trying to get some funding for some different programs at the legislature this year. And that brings me to today, Mr. Chair.
Well, thank you. Colleen?
On the 22nd, I spoke to the College of Food and Agriculture at the University of Minnesota about policy in local government and engagement. It was an interesting group because people from 20 to 50, and lots of questions about local government. I was on a panel with a councilman from Minneapolis and the mayor of Falcon Heights, and talked about how issues change. And so it was interesting and really fun. From the 23rd to the 25th, I was at New Commissioner School. And it was, I think so. Bob actually presented, did a fabulous job, and it was interesting to see the new commissioners and meet the new commissioners, and you'll all get that opportunity at AMC this week. Lots of diversity in thought, I think. So it was good, and lots of good information. It's always good to be refreshed on all the things that counties do and the different ways we do things. So it was great. Work session on the 29th. The 4th, Mark and I, as he said, got trained in on the Community Services Council. It has changed immensely since I was on it years ago. So it'll be really interesting. On the 6th, I went to A Million Cups, which is at MSU downtown, and it's all about economic development and small businesses. And you always get a couple presentations. One of the presentations was Green Seam, and trying to figure out how to make that really go. It's a large area to cover, and they seem to be moving along. Department heads, legislative issues for NACO, trying to put that together. Was with Vance at Transportation Alliance. We had really good meetings, I thought.
We did. It went well.
Yeah, and saw a lot of people at the Capitol that you could connect with. I actually ran into the Commissioner of Housing, Jennifer Ho, and talked to her a few minutes about the Gateway project that's by Cubs downtown. So I sit on Southwest Minnesota Housing Partnership, and so there's some really significant projects that are going on in Mankato with that. So
I forgot we saw Friends too, Senator.
Oh, Nick Friends. I'm sorry. Yeah, Senator Friends. Excuse me. Yeah. So it was good. It was good. And I actually ran into a bunch of legislators I hadn't seen for a long time. Bob Gunther was on his scooter going through. So lots of people. So it's always good to build those relationships.
Yeah, it was good.
So that brings me to today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Colleen. A couple things to add here. 25th, Bob and I met to discuss the upcoming agenda for the work session. The 28th, I had the Watonwan River watershed open house over in St. James. It was a snowy night. I was surprised to see that there was 110 people there.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
We're very, very interested. A lot of folks from our county were there, so it's good to see the interest in the project going there. Of course, the work session was already talked about. The joint ditch meeting with Brown County was talked about. On the 5th, I attended the Vernon Center Council meeting. A couple of items that they're working on that were of interest to me. Department head, again on the 8th, met with Bob, and then yesterday I was down at Slayton for the Rural Minnesota Energy Board meeting. That had been postponed from another snow date, so that's why it's an exciting drive down there. And then this morning I met with the state auditor to go over the beginning of the audit. So, and that's my report. So with that, I'll ask for a motion to not adjourn, but recess to the 7 West Tap House at 11:30.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're recessed. Thank you, everyone.
Thank